I hate working nights. There's something about hospitals in the dead of night that messes with your head. The place is supposed to be alive. Doctors, nurses, patients moving from one place to another. But at 3 a.m., St. Augustine Medical Center is a ghost town. Just flickering hallway lights, the distant hum of machines, and the occasional groan from an unseen patient. I'm Daniel Graves, a security guard here for the last 4 years. The job's not bad. Routine rounds, keeping out drunks, checking in on staff who don't want to be alone. But lately, something's been off. A few weeks ago, we had reports of unauthorized personnel seen near the psychiatric wing. People dressed like doctors but never recognized by the actual staff. Patients whispering about someone watching them at night. One nurse swore she saw a man staring into a patient's room on the second floor, only for him to vanish when she looked again. So when the phone at my desk rang at 2:47 a.m., I was already on edge. The number blinking on the screen? Room 616. That didn't make sense. 6 had been sealed off for months due to ongoing renovations. No patients, no staff, no reason for the phone to be in use. I picked up. "Security," I said. Silence. Then a voice. Low. Shaking. Male. "They're coming. Don't trust them. Please help me." The line went dead. I stared at the receiver, my pulse thudding in my ears. I checked the system. No one was assigned to room 616. That phone should have been disconnected. I glanced at the security monitors. The hallway outside 616 was empty. No movement. Just the long, sterile corridor leading to the locked room. I had two choices. Ignore it, or check it out. I grabbed my flashlight and badge. I went to check it out. The walk to room 616 felt longer than it should have. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, flickering every few steps. The hospital was silent. No nurses, no doctors. The only sound was the soft squeak of my boots on the tile floor. When I reached 616, I hesitated. The door looked normal. No scratches, no sign of forced entry. Just a standard hospital door with a small frosted window. I swiped my security card. The lock clicked open. I stepped inside. The air was stale, untouched. The room was completely empty. The bed was stripped. A fine layer of dust settled on the metal frame. The monitors were unplugged. A thin sheet of plastic covered the floor, a leftover from when construction had paused a month ago. No signs of life. And yet, the phone on the nightstand was off the hook. I swallowed hard and picked it up. No dial tone. The line was dead. I placed it back on the receiver, my mind racing. Someone made that call. I turned to leave. That's when I saw it. A single footprint in the dust. A bare footprint facing the door. Someone had been standing right there, watching me. I spun around, heart hammering. The room was empty. The hall outside was silent. I backed out slowly, scanning the hallway for movement. And that's when I saw Nurse Evelyn from the psychiatric wing, standing at the end of the hall, watching me. She looked nervous. "Why are you in that room?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated. "I got a call from here." Her expression darkened. "No, you didn't." I stared at her. "Yeah, I did." 2:47 a.m., a man's voice. He sounded scared. She shook her head. "That's not possible." I stepped closer. "What do you mean?" She licked her lips. "Because that room's been sealed for longer than you think. The last patient in 616 was a psychiatric transfer from an outside facility. He was paranoid, delusional, claimed the hospital was watching him, that they were experimenting on him. And he went missing." My skin went cold. "Missing?" I repeated. She nodded. "One night he just vanished. No footage of him leaving. No records of a discharge. The hospital wiped his files. Everyone just moved on." I looked back at room 616. "You think the call was from him?" I asked. Evelyn swallowed hard. "I think someone wants you to stop asking questions." At 6 a.m., a patient was reported missing. Jonathan Kearns, psychiatric ward, room 622. He'd been seen just hours earlier by a nurse. The log showed him discharged at 3 a.m., except he never left. Security footage showed no sign of him. His room was empty. His belongings were still there. I pulled up his file. Something about it felt off. Then I saw it. His previous hospital. The same facility as the missing man from room 616. By 7 a.m., I was locked out of the security system. My login credentials were revoked. When I went to the front desk, they acted like nothing was wrong. No one seemed concerned that a patient was missing. Then my work phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, static. Then a voice. Stop asking questions. You're next. My keycard stopped working at 8:01 a.m. I was called into a meeting with hospital administration. When I walked into the office, 2 men in black suits were already sitting there. No names, no introductions, just cold, unreadable eyes. One of them slid a piece of paper toward me, a resignation form. Already signed, my signature, forged. You've been transferred, the man said. No need to come back. I clenched my fists. Where's Jonathan Kearns? Silence. The other man smiled slightly. Go home, Mr. Graves. Get some rest. I stared at them. Then I did something stupid. I reached for my phone to call Evelyn, but her name wasn't in my contacts. Her number was gone, like she had never existed. When I walked out of that meeting, I knew I had a choice. Stay and fight, or walk away. I took one last look at the hospital, the sterile halls, the fluorescent lights, the security monitors where I no longer existed. I turned and walked out the front doors. As I stepped into the morning air, I glanced up at the 6th floor windows. A figure stood behind the glass, watching me. Then, the hospital lights flickered, and the figure was gone. The next morning, the hospital announced that a new security guard was starting at St. Augustine. His name was not Daniel Graves, and no one remembered that I had ever worked there. I should have listened to my gut. The moment Liam opened the door to my rental, I knew something felt off. Welcome, man. You're going to love it here, he said, flashing a wide, toothy grin. He was younger than I expected, mid-30s, clean-cut, with a confidence that felt rehearsed. I always like to meet my guests in person, make sure they feel at home. He stood there a beat too long, still holding the door open, still watching me. I nodded, shifting my suitcase. Appreciate it. He finally stepped aside. Well, I'll let you settle in. You got my number if you need anything. I did. He had messaged me 3 times before I even landed, making sure I knew he was always available. When the door shut behind him, I exhaled. The place itself wasn't bad. Small, modern, that minimalist black and white aesthetic everyone seemed to love. A smart lock on the door, digital thermostat, voice-controlled lights, all the comforts of a fully automated rental. I kicked off my shoes, dropped my bags, and sat on the couch. Long day. I just needed to crash. That's when I saw it. My suitcase zipper was slightly open. I frowned. Had I left it like that? Maybe. But something about it felt wrong. I checked inside. Everything was there. My laptop, wallet, passport. Just tired, I told myself. Overthinking. I locked the door, double-checked it, and went to bed. The sound woke me up at 2:37 a.m. A soft beep. I wasn't dreaming, I heard it clear as day. The electronic lock. I held my breath. Listened. No footsteps, no movement. I grabbed my phone, opened the rental app. The door was still locked. It had to be nothing, right? I sat up, staring at the door. The tiny sliver of light from the hallway cast a faint glow underneath. Then I noticed it. A shadow. Someone was standing outside my door, not moving, just standing there. I didn't breathe, didn't move, just watched. After what felt like forever, the shadow slowly stepped away. I stayed awake until morning. The next day, Liam texted. "Hey man, just checking in. Everything comfortable?" I hesitated. The guy had a key. It wasn't unusual for an Airbnb host to have access, but why was he checking in right after what happened? I typed, "Yeah, all good, thanks." I didn't believe it. That night, when I got back from work, something felt off. The air smelled different, not bad, just like someone else had been there. I checked my suitcase again. My clothes had shifted. A charger I never unpacked was on the counter. I told myself I was being paranoid. Locked the door. Twice. I needed a shower. Just shake this feeling. Steam filled the bathroom as I stood under the water, trying to let the tension wash away. Then I heard it. The beep. My eyes snapped open. The front door had just unlocked. The door opened, closed, locked again. Someone was inside. I turned the water off instantly. Heart pounding. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I held my breath. Fabric rustling. A zipper sliding open. Someone was going through my suitcase. I reached for my phone. It wasn't there. It was on the bedside table. In the bedroom. I was trapped. Think. The doorknob rattled. A hand tested the bathroom door. I gripped the metal shower rod, my knuckles white. Then I yanked it down. The crash was deafening. A second of silence. Then, fast footsteps. A door swinging open. Slamming shut. Gone. I bolted. My suitcase was open. Clothes tossed around. My laptop, gone. I grabbed my phone. Trembling fingers dialed 911. While I was on the phone, I opened the rental app logs. My stomach dropped. Liam had unlocked the door remotely. By the time the police arrived, Liam was gone. No forced entry. No signs of a struggle. Just one guest who thought someone broke in, and legally? Liam had access. The officer shrugged. Could be a misunderstanding. "You sure you didn't leave the door unlocked?" I almost laughed. But then my phone buzzed. A notification from the smart home system. Device disconnected. Hidden camera offline. I stared at the screen. A camera. In the apartment, and someone had been watching me the whole time. Liam's profile was deleted the next day. The rental listing, gone. Police looked into it. Nothing came of it. The worst part? I still don't know what he really wanted. Maybe just to mess with me, or maybe I wasn't supposed to leave. We wanted a quiet vacation. Rebecca and I had been exhausted from work, and Max, our 6-year-old, had been talking about the ocean nonstop. So, we booked a week-long stay at a small, family-run coastal hotel in a quiet town. A place where time moved slower. At first, it seemed perfect. The hotel sat right on the beach, the smell of salt in the air. Only a handful of guests, a small pool, and a private boardwalk leading to the shore. The first day was peaceful. Max played in the sand while Rebecca and I sipped wine on the deck. Then, Max met Oliver, and everything changed. Oliver was a quiet, polite boy about Max's age. He had straw-colored hair, pale skin, and wide green eyes that barely blinked when he spoke. He introduced himself first. "Do you want to play?" Max lit up, nodding. I glanced around. A little way up the beach, a couple sat watching us from the hotel patio. A man and woman, both well-dressed, neat. The woman wore a large sun hat, her dark eyes unreadable behind oversized sunglasses. The man was tall, lean, and smiling. They didn't approach, just watched. After a while, Rebecca whispered, "I guess that's his parents." I nodded. We let the boys play for an hour before calling Max inside for dinner. That's when Oliver spoke again. My parents said Max can come to dinner with us. Rebecca and I exchanged a glance. A cold, uncertain feeling crept into my chest. Why would another set of parents invite a child they just met to dinner? And why hadn't they even spoken to us first? Rebecca smiled politely. "Oh, that's kind, but we already have plans." Oliver didn't react. His face stayed blank like a doll's. From the patio, his parents sat motionless, smiling, watching. That night, at the hotel's tiny restaurant, we sat down with Max to eat. The door opened. Damon and Claire walked in. They sat directly across from us at the only other occupied table in the restaurant. No greeting, no small talk, just silent smiles. "Okay, this is weird," Rebecca muttered. Tried to shake it off. Coincidence. Maybe they just didn't know how to interact with people. Max didn't seem bothered. He waved to Oliver, who sat stiffly between his parents. Oliver raised his small hand exactly once, then let it drop. We left as soon as we finished eating. The next day, things got stranger. At breakfast, they were there. At the pool, they sat across from us. Walking back from the beach, they followed at a distance, always smiling, always watching. By noon, Rebecca pulled me aside. "I don't like them," she whispered. "Me neither," I admitted. "We need to keep Max close." We both agreed. That night, we triple-locked our hotel door. I woke up at 3:14 a.m. Something wasn't right. I rolled over, groggy, checking Max's bed. It was empty. My stomach dropped. Then I saw him. Max was standing by the hotel door. His tiny fingers fumbled with the lock, and he was whispering. I shot out of bed, my voice sharp. "Max, what are you doing?" Max jumped. His wide, unfocused eyes looked at me like he was still half asleep. Behind the door, something moved. A soft shuffling. I lunged, grabbing Max, yanking him back. I threw the door open. The hallway was empty. Just the dim glow of the emergency lights. The faint smell of salt and old wood. Then, footsteps. Fast. Fading. I ran. I turned the corner, heart pounding, just in time to see a shadow disappear down the far hallway. I sprinted barefoot, pulse hammering in my ears. I reached the corridor. Nothing. Turned back. All the doors were closed. They had to be staying on this floor. Rebecca was already awake when I got back. I told her everything. She clutched Max, shaking. I stormed to the front desk. The receptionist was a sleepy-looking woman in her 50s. I demanded to know what room Damon and Claire were in. She frowned. "Who?" "The couple with the little boy." "Damon. Claire. Room 14, I think." She typed something on her screen. "There's no one by those names staying here." I felt like the air was being sucked out of my lungs. I pointed at the registry log. "Check again. They've been everywhere we go. At the pool, at the restaurant. They were..." She shook her head. "Sir, we only have 3 occupied rooms this weekend. Yours, the elderly, couple in room 6 and the newlyweds in room 10. I stared at her. "But Oliver, their kid. He played with Max. Rebecca grabbed my arm. "We're leaving. Now." At sunrise, we packed and left without another word. We drove for hours before finally stopping at a roadside diner. Rebecca was pale, holding Max's hand like she was afraid to let go. I pulled out my phone, searching for anything about this place. Then I found it, an old news article from 10 years ago. Couple vanishes after child disappears from Seaside Hotel. I clicked the link. A family had stayed at that same hotel. Their 7-year-old son went missing in the night. The prime suspects? A man and woman who vanished the next morning. Their names were never confirmed. Max was never supposed to leave that hotel.